Well, good morning, everybody, and happy Halloween. Maybe you've already celebrated it this past Saturday with our children here at the Fall Fest at the church, or maybe you're doing something tonight. But whatever you're doing, be safe, honor Jesus, be kind and generous, and have fun on Halloween. All right, today we are in Job chapter 2. Job chapter 2. And you see an example of Hebrew poetry here because this chapter begins just like the first chapter, with the sons of God, the angels coming to worship God, and Satan comes with them, and that is exactly what happens here. That's what we mean by a form of Hebrew poetry, one example of it, one type of poetry. You have the same thing in Genesis. On the first day, the second day, there was night. It's Hebrew poetry, and you need to read it like that. And in many ways, that Hebrew poetry in Genesis 1 is a polemic against Egypt, from where the slaves had been for all those years, because the Egyptians worshiped the sun god. And Genesis poetically says, no, God created the sun, and on it goes. Anyway, so Hebrew poetry. Now, chapter 2, his body, Job's body, is covered by sores, by boils, because you remember Satan comes back to God and says, hey, yeah, he's still worshiping you, even though he lost his children, he lost his livestock and a lot of his servants, because, a man will sacrifice a lot of things as long as he's healthy, but you haven't touched his body. God, you touch his body and he'll curse you. And Satan says, okay, you can touch his body and hurt him, but you can't kill him. You can harass him, but you can't kill him. And so Satan does that. And his body is covered from head to foot with these very painful sores. It's just awful. His wife tells him to curse God and die. Go ahead and get over it. Just die. He has these three friends visit him, and when they see him and how much pain he is in, all they can do is sit in stunned silence. Wow. But what really spoke to me is, again, Job's response. Chapter 2, verse 10. This is after his wife in verse 9 said, curse God and die. I mean, you're in so much pain. Go ahead and die. Get it over with. And Job in verse 10 said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speak. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? And all this, Job did not sin with his lips. That may be one of the most powerful, profound statements in the Bible. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? If we want the blessings of God, should we still not be faithful through the hardships of life? Whether they come from the hand of God as discipline or the hand of Satan, that cuts against the grain of how we often think. It definitely cuts across the grain of this nonsense prosperity gospel that's all over television and that messes up so many people. Wow, what a statement. I can't get over that statement. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? Whew. The Apostle Paul, centuries later, and remember, Job is saying this without knowing about Jesus. You and I know about Jesus. And centuries later, the Apostle Paul in Philippians chapter 4 would say this, starting in verse 11. Not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. I know how to get along with humble means, poor, not much, and I also know how to live in prosperity. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of being filled and going hungry, both of having abundance and suffering need. I can do all things through Christ, through him who strengthens me. Whew. He said, because of Jesus, I can be fine and I can love God and serve God because of Jesus and the strength he gives me, whether I have a lot or I've got nothing. And all these centuries earlier, Job already figured that out. Wow. Just wow. World looks at us and calls us foolish when you don't want to blame God and get mad because why did God let... That's what Job's wife did in verse 9. Verse 9 and back in Job chapter 2, then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. And the world looks at people like Job and people like us when we stay true to God, no matter what happens, and say, man, you're foolish. And yet we know, no, they are the foolish ones. Doesn't mean Job was happy. Doesn't mean Job was in denial. In fact, in chapter 3, we see his emotional pain. But he refused to blame God. And we'll see that when we look at tomorrow's chapter. I wrote in my journal a prayer. Lord, I pray my faith and walk with you are so strong that I will always be more like Job and never like his wife, no matter what happens in my life. These verses make us think deeply, not only about life, not only about God, but the quality of our faith and our walk with our Lord. And sometimes we need to think deeply so our faith can grow taller. I'll see you tomorrow as we look at chapter 3. God bless you, everybody.